Welcome back to another Zero Context Patreon Stock Advertising my Patreon content one out of context theater moment at a time. I finished up from Blood and Ash before jumping into the third and final book of the Bitten and Bound series, Kept. I know exactly who she is, Hawk shot back, not what she is. Maybe you've forgotten that she's not just a goddamn inanimate object whose only purpose is to serve a kingdom, but I haven't. Hawk, I whirled on him. Oh yeah, that's rich coming from you. How do you see her, Hawk? Victor stepped in more. Suddenly they were as close as Hawk and I had been under the willow. Another notch near the bedpost. My god, I'd rather be viewed as a sex conquest than a virgin sacrifice. At least one of those comes with orgasms. The other comes with a lifetime of trauma that she will spend the rest of her life deconstructing from. No, I shouted, but it was too late. The sword found its target. Victor's body jerked, his back bowing as the sword punched through his chest just above his heart. Shock crawled across his face as he looked down. I stared too, unable to process what I was seeing. I'm not even sorry for saying this, but I feel like Victor also had to die. Why, you ask? Because Victor was eyeballs deep in the Kool-Aid. He was of the opinion that Poppy Ascending could magically fix everything. Now that he's out of the picture, things can actually get started. For real. You would not like my answer, nor would you understand. Neither would I expect you to. Take this as a much need. Listen, Penelope. Some truths do nothing but destroy and decay what they do not obliterate. Truths do not always set one free. Only a fool who has spent their entire life being fed lies believes that. I love how she's openly admitting that for Poppy's entire life she's been lied to, groomed, and gaslit. And I have more input for you. Pack lightly, and don't bother taking that damn veil. You won't be wearing it. At least Hawk continues to impress. The bar is on the ground, but still. I can't imagine rats that weigh nearly 200 pounds being only a nuisance. Rodents of unusual size? I don't think that they exist. Who's saving herself for a royal husband, who, by the way, will not be pure, untainted, or untouched. Seriously, the double standards are fucking unreal. Our group rode hard, the pace aggressive and jarring, and we were 3 guards short of when we left Macedonia. I love how the narration brushes over how 2 other guards apparently died, like, okay, fuck them, I guess. I bit down on my lip as I lay there staring at the small window. Like before, there was no panic or dread. People talked. One way or another, what had happened here would travel beyond the cobblestone streets. It would eventually make its way to the capital and then to the queen. Even if by some small chance it didn't, the gods had to know I was no longer an actual maiden. Whether or not that meant that I was still the maiden in their eyes, I had no idea. But I was no longer the maiden in mine. Friendly reminder that virginity culture is all about men controlling women. I went completely still as I stared up at him, the shock robbing me of my ability to speak for several moments. I saw him for what he really was. He wasn't just any dissenter following the Dark One. That's why you never really smiled, I whispered, because how could he? He had to hide the sharp teeth, 2 of them, fangs. I remember the feel of them against my lips, my neck, recalling how oddly sharp they'd felt. Gods. Now I understood how he could move so fast, why he seemed to have better hearing and eyesight than anyone I'd ever met, and why he sometimes sounded as if he'd lived decades longer than I had. It was why he was quick to break a kiss whenever I came close to feeling his canines. I'd been so blind. He wasn't mortal. He wasn't a woman. Hawk wasn't a Atlantean. Okay, now that we're all on the same page, I reached back when the concept of Atlantean was introduced. Can't we please get some fucking explanations in here? We're literally in chapter 35, and I still don't know what the hell is happening. Have you seen one child that had been given over? Just one princess? Do you know anyone other than a priest or priestess or an ascendant who has claimed to have seen one? You're smart. You know no one has, he challenged. That's because most are dead before they even learn to speak. This is the part that I don't understand. Like, why are they taking babies? At least take an adult. Bigger means more blood. She's a fucking maiden, Delano. She was raised as an ascended by the damn queen herself, practically. The ascendant took my son in the middle of the goddamn night. But she did not take your son, Null replied. This is why they can literally never get ahead. They're so focused on short-term goals, things that feel good in the moment. But like, in the long run, this will literally accomplish nothing. The second hand will take a little closer towards them regaining control. Meanwhile, the minute hand gets further and further away. These people are stupid. Open your eyes, Poppy. Come on, he urged, and I felt fingers prying the dagger from my hand. I thumped off the floor next to me. His hand curved along my chin. I need you to open your eyes, please. Please. I'd never heard him say the word please like that. My sluggish heart rate picked up as awareness returned, bringing with it burning, sweeping pain. I forced my eyes open. There you are. A smile appeared, but it was all wrong and forced. There was no deep dimple or warmth or laughing light to his golden eyes. Out of lack of willpower or stupidity, I did what I had, and since I discovered the truth about him, I reached out with my weakening senses and felt the hum of anguish from him. It ran deeper than before, no longer feeling like tripped device against my sin, but like daggers. Dude bro has it bad. It means it's something I should have figured out sooner. So many things now make sense when they didn't before. Why they made you the maiden, how you survived the Craven attack, your gifts, he said, lowering his voice on the last part so only I and those immediately around us could hear. You're not mortal, Poppy, at least not completely. Yeah, I kinda figured. The Brotherhood isn't since 3. The South is now leaderless. Leaderless countries are unlikely to start wars. Wrong. Leaderless countries don't start wars with other countries. They're too busy slap fighting with Roland's ninth cousin, tries to remove, who shows up out of the woodwork to claim the throne for himself. It wasn't their fault Laurent was being stupid by accepting Queen Elisa's invitation. Right, Laurent accepting the invitation has nothing to do with how his wife, the freaking Queen, is the sister of Roland. Politics and Roland's shit aside, they're both still siblings. It seems cruel to keep Given away from her brother's funeral. Given was a cool, quiet wellspring of beauty in the room of tired, temperamental males. She sat at my right hand, her hair caught back from her face, and a simple crimson gown hung in her curves. I wanted to ask how she was, if she'd eaten. Varric had undoubtedly seen to her needs. Not that she required a keeper, but she deserved chivalry. She deserved better than what she'd gotten from me. To be fair, the bar is on the ground. Laurent is tripping over it, but he's doing better than Roland, that's for sure. Varric is pole vaulting over it. The guard seized the man's hair, yanked his head to the side, and bit through the red band that circled the thrall's neck. The thrall flinched and squeezed his eyes shut. Beside Radu, the young woman lowered her head. She held her arms out in front of her, one hand folded over the other. The red ribbons gleamed around her wrists. That could have been my fate. Oh, for crying out loud. I'm tired of having this conversation, mainly because I thought that we'd left it behind in Book 1. This was literally never going to be Given's fate. Not only would they not have fed on a vampire, but they really wouldn't have fed from a princess. It was always going to end up with Laurent marrying Given, as long as Roland was going to sell out his sister. The Demon King is a liar, halfling, you know that. If Varric calls Given halfling one more fucking time, I'm going to fucking hurt somebody. This isn't a compliment or a term of endearment, it's a goddamn slur. Varric keeps claiming that he loves Given, yet he calls her this. Stop fucking making him call her that every time he talks to her. The gift is yours twofold, your grace. You inherited it, and it was given. No one moved in the hush that followed. Even the energy that filled the room seemed to hold his breath. At last, Given shook her head. Seriously, is that why she's named Given? I will die on this minor hill, but that is the second stupidest name that I've ever read. The first firmly remains untested for years from the Hush Hush series of Patch the Angel. You could have saved a lot of people a great deal of trouble by speaking up sooner, I told him. He drew an even breath. I could not, Lord Varric. Why? I said bluntly. It would have influenced your actions. That sounds like an excuse, something a manipulative person would say to get what they want. Honestly, shitty people doing whatever the hell they want in order to manipulate people, then lying and gaslighting others around them is kind of the gist of this series. I don't know why Varric is surprised about any of this. Because if I wasn't mistaken, I just heard Arthur of Laguna planning treason. I don't even know who you are. None of us can control our desires when we feed, Laguna said, but you take it too far, your grace. He glanced at Varric and spread out a word. Attraction is unnatural. You have allowed it to rule you. You've imperiled the kingdom by refusing to take a wife and sire an heir, and now you've angered the gods. His voice climbed, indictments falling like the lash of a whip. The deep night is crumbling. Larkataran has been taken. If that was true, then wouldn't actually getting married have resolved the problem? Talk about grasping at straws here. The lords of the council shot him anxious looks, no doubt wondering if they could suffer the same fate as Laguna. Yeah, that's why he's making an example out of Arthur. Let it be known that my first act as high priest was to bind Varric of Larkataran and Given of Elvanden and Nordor in marriage. My second act was to bind Varric of Larkataran and myself in marriage. I looked at Laguna. You see, Arthur, Varric is my husband now. By law, I can't deny him my bed. Power play. I like it. The insults about me being a half-vampire always got worse when it was time to send thralls over the rift. Soldiers would visit the poorest villages, pressuring families to volunteer their sons and daughters. The low people hated it, but they did it for the money it would bring. She hesitated, her brow furrowing, and Laurent touched her hand. Please keep going, sweetheart. You're telling us things we need to hear. She chewed her lip as she looked at him. Then she drew an even breath. The thralls weren't mistreated here, my lord, but there, he frowned. What? Food, she said bluntly. You treat them like food, and they're not food. They're people with minds and hearts and loved ones back home across the rift. Mira and Henrik helped me so much. Who? That's exactly what I mean, she said. A flush spread down her neck as she grew more impassioned. You don't even know their names. Lauren's expression turned perplexed. Well, I don't need to. Mira and Henrik are thralls I met in Larbunda, and they're both lovely. She turned blazing blue eyes to me. It was Mira's idea to use the bandages for the knights. A human woman helped you retake the city, General. I'm not saying that treating thralls better or straight up not doing it at all would solve all of their problems, but it's not fucking helping. Your presence is a surprise, Chieftain. Westfed is famous for its independence. I thought you were committed to not choosing sides. Yeah, there's no way in hell that the other kingdom would be content to take over only the vampires and be done with it. Not when Westfield is tiny and has a fraction of the population. Plus, Sears and all that. I'm sure that they've quite literally seen a thing or two. He'd seen Given's strength long before I did. They were both so strong, somehow it convinced them to love me. Convinced? More like force. I don't think that Given would be there in general to start with his queen if he hadn't insisted upon it with Roland. Elisa stood a distance away, a bow in her hands. Her mouth trembled and tears streaked down her pale cheeks. An anguished cry split the air across the field. Ygritte watched Elisa from atop a horse. She let out another cry and kicked her heels against the beast's sides. Elisa dropped the bow. She gathered her black skirts and ran. As fast as a vampire, Ygritte drew an arrow and fired. It struck Elisa between the shoulder blades, sending her stumbling forward. She fell on her face in a flurry of black skirts, her arms stretched in front of her. Ygritte fired again, hitting her on the shoulder. Elisa screamed and writhed on the ground. Up until this book, I seriously thought Roland's two wives to be nothing more than victims of unfortunate circumstances. One might even be so willing to think that Elisa was put into power and married a man she didn't love simply because of her shitty father. But she's determined to kill herself via the vampires. Like, what the fuck did any of these people think was going to happen when they provoked the vampires? My god, even within this context of this novel, it was not a war that could be won easily without magic, and they didn't even have that. In a strange way, Sistria's attack on Lord Carton and the fight at the Rift had been a reprieve. It felt wrong to view it that way, but now that the South no longer posed a threat, I had no choice but to face the prophecy. There are less than 60 pages left. How the hell is this going to be resolved in a satisfactory way in that time, especially when you're spending an entire chapter partying? There were always multiple paths, he said, millions of rivers flowing all at once. I've seen every path you might have chosen. In the end, you chose this one. What if I hadn't chosen this? Anger rose and I let it flood my voice. If I'd had a child with Varric, would you have done everything in your power to see it sacrificed to the Rift? I would have done whatever I had to do to protect the realm, he said, and its savior. Are we still back on the bullshit of that interpretation? I thought that we'd agreed some time ago that it was obviously gibberish and that throwing Given or her child into the Rift wasn't going to magically fix a fucking thing. We were a pair of idiots who thought with our dicks. Given obviously knew that, and she'd outsmarted us. Blinded by lust, we hadn't noticed anything awry in the Rose Room. We'd failed to see what was missing. Again, I feel like this ending came out of nowhere. At no point did I think that they were doing literally anything to try and resolve the issue of the demons. Instead, Given simply woke up one day and was like, well, I guess I could throw myself into the rift to see if that fixes things, and if not, then I'll probably be dead anyway, so I won't care anymore. Stay connected by joining Patreon as a free member, which gives you access to the same content you've been enjoying on Tumblr. However, for just $1 a month, you can join my Patreon and gain access to this month's Book Snark, plus enjoy early access to free daily snarks. Thanks for watching. See you next month, guys!